Introducing
Pretty Girls Love Real Estate. Stories of everyday women breaking barriers and building wealth through real estate.
Let's get it. Boss. BOSS.
Hello. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Pretty Girls Love Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Washington, and I got a very amazing guest today, as always. I have Miss Ayesha Hudson. She's a DC native, and she has been a landlord for over 20 years now. So she's seen all of the transition in the city, and now she is an aspiring developer. I shouldn't even say aspiring because she's out here doing a lot of things. So without further ado, Miss Ayesha, how are you?
I'm well, and thank you for having me, Jessica.
Of course. So yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you because you got a very interesting story, and I don't know, I just foresee that you're doing crazy things, and I just can't wait to see where you go within the next couple years. It's not even in the future, it's here. Your future is now. So first and foremost though, how did you even become interested in real estate?
I think my interest began in the womb. My grandfather, it did, Jessica. My grandfather, my paternal grandfather, spent a lot of time with my mother when she was carrying me. And this grandfather was one that believed in real estate ownership and sharing. Those were the cornerstones of his beliefs. And the properties that he bought in DC, I was told by everybody in my family that he said it was for the family. The house that I grew up in, he said anybody can come and live here if they need to. And so his energy, his knowledge, his desire to protect something for his family, I think it lives in me. And now that I'm older and I have come to my own realization about things, I really think about his influence a lot. Especially since now, I've been able to hold on to at least one of his properties and working on a second. And so I feel like I'm the one, in a sense, to continue on with my grandfather's legacy and what he saw for us. And so that was my real beginning. The first time I bought a piece of real estate, though, was in 1999. I bought a 4-unit. I needed I was ready to begin my adulthood living on my own. So I lived in it for several years, and I got a taste of renting to other people and what that meant and how, you take care of the mortgage through the rents. I was always working along the way. And so it gave me a real appreciation for disposable income. And once you get started with that and you understand that you don't have to trade time for money at every level, it was inspiring and encouraging. So from 1999 up until now, and then God willing, continuing, I'll continue to acquire, build, preserve housing. So yeah.
Okay, so back up real quick, because now I feel like with social media, there's a lot of talk about house hacking, is what you just explained that you did. But back then in 1999, especially here in the city, a lot of people weren't talking about that. So how, is there any particular person that put you on to that strategy? To do that?
Yes, thank you for asking that. And Dean Smothers ended up becoming sort of an informal mentor. And he's somebody that I still call to this day. So I was working for DC Fire. I overheard them talking. I jumped into their conversation, started asking questions. And they were already renting their spaces. Marilyn, especially, she lived in Trinidad. And she was already living in one of her units and renting out the others. Dean was much bigger then. I'm not sure what his start was, but he was always in the lower socioeconomic communities renting. And so the combination of those two spirits, and then we were already on the fire department, which also meant, we had some sense of some yearning to help, community service. So they were really my mentors early on. And then I met Gary White, who became my realtor for, I would say, the first maybe 5 or 6 properties that I purchased. And my very first building is next door to Gary's building. And so I started working with Gary when I was about 19. The building beside his came available. We went and saw it, and then just kept going from there. A lot of people along the way. Gary's brother, he's a big influence even to this day, a great resource. But the model was there in our communities, but it wasn't as celebrated as it is now. Like you say, it was a hack. As I mentioned, for me, I needed a place to live, and it was either that, getting an investment property and living in it, or maybe a condo or a house, which is the general, in my circle, the general path, right? But what it does is it puts you in a place of creating debt before income. If you buy a place and you live in it, you're able to do both. You have a roof over your head, you do have that debt, but the income from the rentals will allow you to take care of that debt, instead of, you trading time for money or spending all of your money taking care of the mortgage. Yes. So it's been around.
Okay. So you, most of your properties, or I would say all of your properties, you're very passionate about serving like the underserved, the low income community. Tell me about that and why you're so passionate about, helping out that subset of folks.
Yeah, that comes from me seeing myself in my tenants. Where I grew up is less than maybe about 3 miles from where I bought my first investment property in DC. So it felt comfortable. It was home. It felt very natural. And then as my fire department journey, my spiritual journey, and just learning, period, I began to feel closer to us and our struggles and hurdles and things. And when those of us are able to rise, if you will, to be able to see people behind us, for a lack of better words, right? Because that's where you were. I feel like it's a superpower in a sense, because you have more and better insight into what the people behind you could use. And so that feeling grew more inside of me, especially as I was working on the fire department and I'm running calls in our community. And people don't call the fire department unless they need help, unless it's something that they can't solve on their own. So I found myself in a position of helping, having something that our community needed by way of the fire and EMS department. And so that grew, just seeing us in a light where we always needed something. And so the ways that I was able to contribute were through paramedicine and real estate. And I just dove into those.
Okay. And so, great that you serve that population. However, as things become more expensive on your end as the landlord, you got to get those subsidies. And, as we were going through the EDI program, like I noticed that you're very familiar with all the different subsidy programs and that whole alphabet soup of agencies to deal with. So tell me about some of the subsidies that you've worked with for your tenants.
Sure. So since day one, I've always had tenants that received subsidies and or case management. And it was really before I understood all of the nuances of the programs. It was before I knew the acronyms of the programs. They would just come to me in certain situations, and we found a way to work together. It was later that I started finding out about the programs and what permanent supportive housing, what that was attached to, and the fact that the local rent supplement program, it was something that DC administered versus what HUD administers. That knowledge came later. And actually, Jessica, EDI took that knowledge even further, because that was not a particular interest for me. I knew that the tenants had the program support, but I didn't necessarily pursue that. It just was, my properties were in communities where we lived, and I was a very hands-on landlord, that those kinds of tenants and the case managers and the programs, they began to feel more and more comfortable with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've gotten, kind of woven into the system, if you will, as a landlord that does accept all, various vouchers and subsidies and things.
Mm-hmm.
So right now it's Department of Behavioral Health, Permanent Supportive Housing, the LRSP program. We have VASH, the veterans, sort of like a veterans voucher program. We
Right.
participants there. We have participants that are affiliated with certain nonprofit agencies that the nonprofit agency assists them with their rent. One being Community Connections.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the organizations will have in-house programming that can further help the tenants. And so I'm still learning all of those even.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely the few that I mentioned, I've been working with those, at least the past 20 years. When I first got started, a lot of my residents came from the shelter. I remember having lease up days where I would have 4 and 5 people sitting across the table from me, and we're all going over the lease together so we could get the people housed relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got started in 1999, I was one of the landlords that would house the people coming out of the shelters that were being closed throughout the city. And so I early on took the work serious, and early on knew that I was contributing. I just didn't know all of the acronyms and all of the people and all of that behind it. I was just more interested in doing the work. And so now with more information, I believe I will impact the system of it a little better, rather than just being in the system
Right.
and working through it. And so that is what the EDI and the HEAF program and talking to you and other people have allowed me to see.
Okay, well, I'm glad you talked about like helping out the system, because that's a good segue to my next question. You're involved in the landlord advisory groups in DC. So how has that experience been, and how have you been able to, I guess, learn from other landlords, and what are the things that you've contributed to the group?
Oh man. So learning from other landlords, it's coaching, it's mentorship that you don't have to pay for, the vent sessions, right?
Mm-hmm.
We vent about things, and we learn about ways that didn't work. We learn new ways of dealing with what comes with being a small landlord, especially a small landlord in lower socioeconomic areas.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a culture, and it's definitely a language. So having the landlords and the landlord advisory group, and then also having the community partnership for the prevention of homelessness,
Mm-hmm.
who is kind of the glue for the program. They're working with the Department of Human Services, as well as ICH, the Inter Council on Homelessness. So those 3 agencies we have a direct line to.
Mm-hmm.
And so that also is, they provide resources that the small landlord wouldn't necessarily be privy to. So the combination of all those things, it really is empowering in
Mm-hmm.
a way that not only are you learning how to make your own landlord system better, you can then take feedback to the landlord advisory group. The landlord advisory group has been put together specifically so landlords can operate more efficiently with the different programs in the city. So some of the things that we do, we review the rapid rehousing packets, right? The information that the tenants will fill out, we were reviewing that, because as a small landlord, there are certain things, certain questions that you try to get to understand the prospective resident. And so having input in that on the front end has been really invaluable. Another initiative that we're working on that I'm really proud of is the Central Unit Repository, CUR. where it's going to be like a massive place, if you will, marketplace for housing. For the small landlord, the residents, the case management information is going to be there. The documents that you need will be there. So sort of a easier to use portal where people can go and be matched a little easier with housing, landlords with tenants, and then also the organizations are there for when we need their input and their help. And so one of the ways that I have contributed is pushing landlord engagement and recruitment. So trying to talk with more people, more landlords, to say, hey, come and be a part of that, a part of the landlord advisory group, because I feel like the louder our voice becomes, the easier it will be to move some of the policy. Right now, the landlord advisory group, we're grappling with the rent decrease talk that's been that's going around the city right now. And so because we have a direct line to DHS, which if you have any kind of subsidy or service, you're going to touch DHS. So our group, who right now, if I'm not mistaken, maybe we represent about, I know it's over 10,000 units. Wow. And between 10 and 30, I don't have the updated number. We just went through a session where we had about 6 or 7 landlords to join. And so as we continue to increase that number, our voice will be louder. We'll be able to say, here are the things that the small landlord needs and requires to continue doing the work. One of the things that's coming out of the landlord advisory group is a subgroup. And so we're planning to meet on the 29th of this month, where the larger landlord advisory group, I want to say, is 20 to 30 folks. But then we now have this smaller group where it's about 10 of us that are really interested in in-person meetings and initiatives, to where we're not waiting for the monthly calls. We're not waiting for the landlord advisory group's direction to drive the work. And so I'm enjoying being a part of the larger landlord advisory group, and I'm also proud and looking forward to the contribution that the kind of subset of us that we're saying, hey, let's talk even more. I'm looking forward to what will come out of that as well.
Is it do you have to have a minimum number of units to be involved, and like how do you find out where the meetings are? And then also, is it like the whole city, or is it broken down into different wards, or like low income housing versus luxury market rate? How is it organized?
It's everybody, luxury down to low income. It's citywide. You don't have to have a minimum number of units, to my understanding. I think anybody can join. So we're in our second season of it. Last year was the first time that those 3 agencies came together to create what's called the Landlord Engagement Project, or at least their initiative supports the Landlord Engagement Project. And so we were the pilot group. We are just now entering our second season. Anybody can join. And what was the other question, Jessica?
Oh,
the minimum units. Oh, the meetings.
Yeah, the meetings. How do you find out about them?
Right. So the Community Partnership for the Prevention of Homelessness, I've been working with them for 20 plus years. Since I've been a landlord, I've always worked with the Community Partnership. And so they had an interview process where they were soliciting landlords that were interested. And so when I got the email, I signed up. There were some questions that you had to answer. You had to kind of go through their internal approval process.
Right.
I was one of the ones that was selected. And then for this second round, they actually asked us, for referrals and things. And so I referred maybe 4 landlords. I think that will be a way, us on the group, we will be the voice, we will be the marketers. I think that's one of the responsibilities that I hope we're all taking seriously, recruiting, because we can't expect the community partnership, ICH and DHS to really I think they started the initiative. I think now that we're a part of the initiative, we can speak to other landlords about the work and about our experience. And I think that voice will be really compelling to have landlords want to be a part of it. So far, it's been an annual induction process. Not sure if that'll change. The meetings right now are held virtually once a month. And the participants in the group, we get the announcement, to say when we're going to meet. The Landlord Advisory Group itself has done a wonderful job of putting different people in front of us, from DCRA. I mean, all of the players in real estate, we've had some kind of engagement with them at some point. The Housing Authority, and generally it's the leadership of the different agencies. And so the larger that this group becomes, I think the more the agencies will be encouraged to get our feedback on things that are implemented. And we're hoping to be a very loud voice for the rent changes that are coming down the pike.
Well, it sure sounds like you need to be the president of this organization or something.
Go ahead, Jessica. Go ahead.
You out here shouting from the rooftops, and you already got all the feedback they need to make it better. So I'm speaking that into existence for you.
I appreciate that, Jessica. I appreciate it.
All right, so let's talk about, we were both in the Capital Impact Partners Equitable Development Initiative, and then you also are in the offshoot of that is the Amazon Accelerator Program. So tell us what both of those programs are, and then let's talk about how, what's the similarities and differences.
Sure. So both programs are targeted to helping Black and Brown developers, educating us, providing mentorship, providing financial resources, confidence to be able to enter certain rooms and maneuver. And so I appreciate both programs. They're very similar. And the HEAF program, the Housing Equity Accelerator Fellowship, HEAF for short, it is, in my mind as well, sort of like an offshoot of CIP, where it's saying, okay, let's go a little deeper. Let's go a little further. Let's give some more resources to get the work done. And let's see where that takes us. So just like the initial effort of the Landlord Advisory Group, we were cohort number 3 of EDI, and now I'm cohort number 1 of the Housing Equity Accelerator Fellowship. I feel like all of these programs are platforms to begin moving the needle the way it needs to be moved by us and with us. I don't know. I'm new to the commercial real estate space, but I haven't seen anything like the Equitable Development Initiative and the HEAF program for us.
Right.
So I think both are good launch pads to get us in the room, and then we shouldn't leave, right? Yeah. We should get there and then bring others, teach others, pass on what we're getting. And I think both programs are doing a great job of that. The HEAF program, because it introduces the grant money, and they also right out the gate said, hey, we want units to be produced and we want units to be preserved. I appreciate that they were very clear about that. They've been very clear about the dollar amounts that are involved. And they have been clear about what they think the process should be. And I feel like they've gotten feedback on what they think the process should be. Right. And so we want to continue to put ourselves in positions so we can inform them about what they think the process should be. Right. And when I say them, anybody that's not us, anybody that's not doing the work in our communities for us and by us, right? We have to inform them of what it requires because we know best. And so I think their effort to put the programs together, I applaud it. And I'm looking forward to them continuing to take feedback. Just last week, we had a not a variation, but we had a rule a rule to be changed a little bit based on the feedback that they have gotten in different milestones. And so instead of the milestone being completion of something, or up to construction, is now, okay, show us some steps that you've made to get yourself to construction, right? Because where the programs are acknowledging our baby steps or lack of
your challenges, like
resources, right? So the programs in and of itself is an acknowledgement of those things,
right?
And so we want to hold the programs and ourselves accountable to what they are saying they want to do, right? And how we think that should look.
The EDI program is mostly focused in the DMV area, but as Heath, are they making it so, you guys can be looking at deals from all across the country, or is it still focused in this area?
It's still focused primarily in this area. I don't know if they're going to do a fellowship maybe in a different city. Like EDI has their initiative in Dallas and things. I do imagine that it will grow. And it goes back to our responsibility as participants, right? I was selected to be in this program. And so it is in line with what I'm already doing and the work that I already want to see happen. So I've taken the responsibility of being in the program to make good on what they say that they're trying to do. And once we do that, why would the program stop? Why can't we expand it? Why can't we change the rules when the developers in the program take the responsibility seriously and make good on it?
Right.
I see it opening up to other cities. Even when I think about the work that we're doing here in this city, I want to take it to other cities. My mother's family is from Philly. My grandfather, Greenville, my paternal grandfather, Greenville, South Carolina. So I would like to impact all my roots if I can. And so as this program continues and we're producing what the program folks who put it together, what they say they want, and then it's in line with me as a developer and what I want for myself and my community. When those things keep colliding, I just see it getting bigger and bigger, city to city, because you take the mentality, you take the concept, and you just keep reapplying it.
Okay. So now that you've, been a part of these programs now, and I know Heath is still ongoing, how has it been, for you now to take that information, the resources, the confidence, like you said, how has it been for you, actually taking that information and applying it outside of the programs?
It's been great, Jessica. I've grown even beyond my own not imagination, but beyond my own plan. Comfort is really the overarching goal of mine. And so to be able to take the knowledge and apply it in a way that not only will I make myself comfortable, but it's like my family, the community, their families. I'm seeing ways to do that. And that has really been invaluable, because for me, it has gone from real estate development to community development. What do you want the community to look like? How do you want it to feel when you come here? A lot of us that are DC natives, we feel like at different levels, we don't always feel like we're participating in everything. And so the programs and the money behind the programs will allow us to keep opening the door for ourselves and for others. And so coming to that realization It has been some special moments for me. I am evolving as a businesswoman. I'm evolving spiritually.
Mhm.
Um, family wise, I'm evolving. You know my husband. Hopefully, you'll be able to meet our kids, and so it's just a lot that's going on all at the same time.
Mhm.
We're grooming them to come out into society as they graduate from high school and to do something. So it's been a lot. It's been a
Yeah.
lot. And it's sometimes it's hard to put into words, but I think it comes through in my action. I think it comes through in the way that I talk now. I think I talk differently
Mhm.
from how I used to talk.
Yes.
And so I describe it as a puzzle box, right? Before you put the puzzle together, you see all the pieces,
Yeah.
right? And so now you gotta, maybe you start with the edges, right? You
Mhm.
put the edges together, and so that's how I feel like my puzzle is kind of coming together, and it's exciting. It's exciting.
So what's the
Yeah.
next I know you got a couple projects coming down the pipeline and stuff you're working on. What's next as far as that goes that you care to share?
Sure, sure. So as far as the projects, the three that I've been working since EDI, they're still coming along. I'm looking forward to celebrating with DC Green Bank. We've already gotten approval with them. Um, and that encompasses three separate sites that were already in our portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have submitted our first letter of intent for a large project in Prince George's County, where I currently live and where I just retired, from a public service career.
Mm-hmm.
So the area where the letter of intent, where we put the letter of intent for, I ran calls in that area. I remember being on my shift, and I might not have slept because I was stationed at Company 838 on Sheriff Road, the first Black firehouse in the county that was created because the fire department didn't come over there to put the fires out, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I was stationed there for years, before I became the EEO officer, before I started dealing with the discrimination inside of the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
And so to come to the letter of intent to now build housing, and our concept, my team's concept, is public safety,
Mm-hmm.
right? This place, Glenarden Hills, is where the project is. Some people will call it projects,
Yeah.
right? Because public service workers, because that's my connection. So our marketing plan will be for public service, fire department, because it'll bring a different look and a different feel and a different investment to that community.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I'm really excited about that we have started incorporating into our projects is urban farming, fruits and vegetables, growing herbs and vegetables and food that you can eat off the vine.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Another thing is renewable energy. We're getting a lot of attention to solar, stormwater management, and not just solar, but how can the solar benefit the community?
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at ways to also affect our residents' electric bills.
Mm-hmm.
So every project that we take on, we want to bring that kind of energy. We're looking at a 21 unit in Northwest right now, still working out the kinks. But for me, whether I make it to the finish line with a thing isn't always the win for me. So the fact that I'm now having these conversations, my husband and I are going to look at different, bigger properties, and we are being taken seriously. We've won, right? We won that part. So now, you go on to the next part that you can win. So 21 unit, and then just in general, looking at how we can, wherever we can purchase something. And my husband's working on a deal in Oxon Hill right now. We have my grandfather's land that we'll end up coming back to because we want to do housing and education there. And I'm pretty sure, which is a little different from when we ran the EDI program. I'm pretty sure now the housing plus education for youth, I like that will be it, right? And that feels good to come to a resting place with your idea, because now you just work on it, right? Yep. So there's that. Yeah, building the business.
Yeah. I mean, you already were killing the game on the landlord side, but now you're like Smith super developer. So
go ahead, Jessica. I appreciate it.
Yes, I can't wait to see everything that's coming up for you. Like, it's so amazing. And I can talk to you about this all day, but I'm going to just shift over to the last segment of the show, which is the Fabulous Four. It's 4 questions I ask all the guests. So here we go. For you, the first question is, what's your favorite book about real estate?
So I don't have a specific book about real estate, Jessica, but there are 2 books that relate to real estate for me. One of them is The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, where that book is exploring how the housing landscape was affected by our mistreatment here in the country and what it looked like as we migrated to other suns. So the sun is in the sun in the sky, right? How we migrated to different areas. And I'll say looking for warmth, right? Looking for something better. And as we did that, it shaped the cities that we landed in. And I'm curious to learn more about how and when that was overlooked and how it got to where we are. So I'm listening to that one, actually. That's an audio book. The other one that I'm slowly reading that I feel like is very real estate pertinent, the title is Impact the World, Live Your Values, and Drive Change as a Citizen State Person by Carrie Rich and Dean Filk. That book talks about a mentality, right, of who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. And so it's relevant to real estate for me because I'm in real estate. So what am I doing? Who am I, right? What am I doing? How will I do that? How will I drive change in my community? And so I'm using real estate right now. And so the principles that the book talks about, the examples that it gives, has really been inspiring for me. So those are the 2.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard either of those, but I have heard of Isabel Wilkerson. So I'm going to have to check both of those out. All right. So second question is, what advice would you give to your younger self just getting started in real estate?
Go get it. Go get it. Don't be afraid. It's all going to work out. I wouldn't change this necessarily, but I was very reserved in my movement. And a lot of it came from fear of different things, right? I think sometimes the reason we stay on jobs is because of fear. The reason we don't take make a move that's risky, what if it doesn't work? That's fear. Right. And so get over the fear, right? Work on removing fear in your life. Because once you do that, it'll whoever you are, it'll come through more easily. And so
not just being scared, because if you're scared, that means that you're heading in the right direction. That means do it anyway.
And it's something with the fire department that is really pertinent to fear, because they say, well, what you mean you running into a building, a burning building, or you're knocking on somebody's door, you don't know what's behind the door. When you're well trained, it changes how you feel about what you're doing. And I feel like the fire department trains you well to knock on somebody's door and start an IV and, do CPR and send electricity and, all these very fearful things,
Yep.
the training gives you the confidence to say, I might not be able to save them, but here are my efforts to try.
Yep.
And so, yeah, fear can be crippling. But when you're prepared and you're armed with education,
Yep.
you're armed with knowing what you know, and then a support system, you got your people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go get it. That's
Okay.
what I would say.
Yeah, that's profound advice. Yes. Love it. All right. So the third question is, what topic in real estate do you want to learn more about?
Housing cooperatives. One of the things that I recognize that has been a game changer in my own real estate trajectory is ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Mine came through the inspiration of my grandfather, and then my mother, and then my father, who would talk to me all the time about my grandfather. So ownership was always a part of my plan and a part of what I thought I should do. Once you are in the rat race and you're trying to just maintain what you have, I think ownership becomes a little more elusive.
Mm-hmm.
So we have people that may not be able to put down $1 million for a property, right? But if we have somebody like us that, okay, we're going to buy this 10 unit, the residents, they can still have some kind of ownership through housing cooperative, right? Not condo, but through housing cooperatives. And so I just want to learn more about what that could actually look like in practice. Because even for my tenants now, because they have certain benefits from the city, that has to be protected so they can maintain at least the existence that they have now. So when you start adding anything to them, whether it's money or they own anything, that changes the help that they receive.
Right.
So how can we incorporate an expense that's going to be there anyway? Everybody is going to have a housing expense unless you're homeless. How can we take this expense that we know is very present, and we know it is always going to be at least 30% of your income, and when you live in places like DC, 50 to 75% of your income toward housing? How can we take that and allow for it to mean something? And I think housing cooperatives could be a way. You know, you live here, you're renting, you can only afford X amount, but you own a few of these bricks.
And it changes your mentality, like that you actually
absolutely
you're gonna have more like care, and you're gonna, take more pride in what you're doing.
Indeed.
Okay.
Indeed.
The last one is not really a question, but can you please give a shout out to another woman in real estate?
You, Jessica, you. Listen, this podcast. No, that's who I had. That's it. You, from the time I met you, your energy, your inquisitiveness, right? We were on the same team. First of all, you came to the team just off of, I don't even know. Right. So to me, that's worth something. Right. We came together and you were working on it, Jessica. You were interested in it. And so that kind of energy and passion and commitment, those are the kinds of people that I want to work with. And I think that is what's going to put us on it'll set all of our trajectories a little different. I learned a lot about pro formas working with you. You were able to, take us through the numbers. And you have a confidence. It is not arrogance. It's a confidence that it's inspiring. So yeah, and then you got this podcast, Pretty Girls Love Real Estate. Even the title I thought was catchy and fitting, right? Because pretty girls do love real estate, and you're crossing over a lot of different things. Being a DC native, your locks, your mentality, the podcast, EDI, you taking classes and trying to educate yourself, right? And then you're given a platform, as you said, for people that may not be heard otherwise. I mean, I think that's valuable. So yeah, you're my shout out.
Oh, well, I appreciate those kind words. You're gonna make me cry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. It's true.
I appreciate it. All right. So how can people get in touch with you? And lastly, you got any more words of wisdom for the listeners?
Words of wisdom, be courageous and share. How to reach me, my email, Ayesha at apeacellc.com. I have a website, which is apeacellc.com. My husband put that together. Shout out to him for that. Yeah, and then my cell number. I'm really kind of nuts and bolts. Like, call me, text me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess whoever might be interested, they have you. Feel free to link us.
All right. Well, yeah, this was a great conversation. Like I told you before we started pressing record, I was like, we need the words of wisdom for the people on wax. So I appreciate it. Yes.
Likewise, I appreciate you.
Love the energy. Every time I speak to you, I feel uplifted, ready to run through a wall afterwards.
Let's go. Let's go.
Let's do it. All right. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing all what you have going on. So let me know any way I can help as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
And absolutely. Keep going with this, please.
Oh,
we
yes.
want it and we need it.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate you. All right. Well, again, this was another episode of Pretty Girls Love Real Estate. I'm Jessica Washington. Thank you to my guest, Ayesha Hudson. And stay tuned for the next one.